Welcome to the Crimson Engine. My name is 𝙎𝙖𝙇. Today we are looking at the 3 top methods of handholding your camera to get awesome, smooth, interesting, and impactful footage. When people say handheld, they usually mean without a Steadicam, gimbal, stabilizer, tripod, or some other extra device. It's just you, the operator, and your camera. That doesn't necessarily mean that the camera needs to be in your hands. It could be on your shoulder. It can be anywhere the camera needs to be. The first way we're going to look at is by far the most common, and that is on your shoulder. To get smooth, stable, comfortable handheld, shoulder-mounted work, you want, strangely enough, as heavy camera as possible. When a camera is light and it sits on your shoulder, it tends to wobble around every time you move, and it tends to move with your breathing and with your small gestures. The heavier the camera, the less you're going to notice these. This is a throwback to the old Arriflex days of celluloid cameras when they weighed about 40 pounds, and once you put them on your shoulder, they stayed on your shoulder. Now, people didn't really walk around or run around with these. It was more a way of quickly moving from shot to shot without having to reposition and change the height of a tripod. You would just either have the operator standing with it on their shoulder, sitting with it on their shoulder, lying with it on their shoulder. And it was a really quick way to go from shot to shot and get as many shots as you could during a day without having to mess around with all the cogs and wheels and adjustments of a tripod. Having your camera handheld does translate to a different quality in your footage. It's more alive, it breathes, it feels more tense. It's more suitable to a horror or thriller than it is maybe to a drama. It's particularly a period drama where you're sort of using the cold eye of history to watch events take place. Nevertheless, there have been some great historical dramas shot handheld. To get stable shoulder-mounted footage with a handheld camera, you want as many points of contact as possible. That means your shoulder, your hands, and potentially your eye. If you have an EVF or electronic viewfinder, it means that you can push it against your eye and use that as an extra point of contact. That means that the whole thing will move as one unit rather than toppling around. Now, it is very difficult to operate a heavy camera and change the camera settings or focus the lens. So you may want to use something like a Teradek or a remote video so that a focus puller can be watching the video as well and adjust it with a remote follow focus, or stand next to the camera and adjust it himself. There are a ton of devices that let you operate and pull focus, but really this is you're either going to fail at the focus or you're going to fail at the operating. It's 2 different jobs, especially with multiple moving elements. You really need to have both hands on the handles of your camera and be tracking with your subject and let someone else worry about the focus. That second person also comes very handy for spotting you. When you have your eye to the EVF and your other eye closed, you are extraordinarily vulnerable on set because you're not aware of your surroundings. Especially if you're on a long lens, you're focusing on a very, very small part of your surroundings. And there are plenty of examples, you can find them on Instagram, of people crashing into things or destroying themselves and their cameras because they didn't have someone spotting them, or in this case, the person spotting them wasn't doing a very good job. This is just as important if you're going forward as it is going backwards. Would you go for a walk on a windy day with $10,000 balanced on your shoulder in cash, hoping that if you didn't fall over, it would be blown away by the breeze? Probably not. It's exactly the same thing with the camera. You need to, invest $100 or $200 to pay someone for the day just to make sure that you don't absolutely get wiped out. The next form of handheld we're going to talk about is cradling the camera in your arms, sometimes called Mancam, sometimes called belly mounted. Basically, you hug the camera to your body and look down at a top mounted screen. This allows you to get shots from waist height that makes your characters appear taller. It allows you to get top angle shots. I remember reading a photography book years ago that said if your photos aren't interesting enough, you need to either get closer or change your height. Because if you shoot everything from the same height that we regularly see it, between 5 and 6 feet, it just looks pretty normal. But if you get low down and shoot up at it, or get high and shoot down at it, it takes on a new dimension and has more visual power. This is the idea behind mancamming. It's also a very stable way to shoot and a very quick way to shoot, because you can transition from shoulder mounted to mancam almost instantaneously within the same shot. And once you're settled in, you can do a second take, and this makes things look much more impressive, especially on a wide lens. Again, it is a real juggle to try and mancam and focus, because both your hands are pulling your camera to your body. So either set a focus and try and stay that same distance from your actor or your subject, or have someone else pull focus remotely. This is actually harder to do with mancam than is shoulder mounted, because the focus puller doesn't really have clean access to the follow focus, and they'll have to pull focus remotely if there's a lot of blocking and changing and moving elements in the shot. The last handheld modality I wanted to talk about is something called crash cam. It's when you have two handles either side of the camera, and you hold the camera in between your hands, not attached to your body, and look down at a small screen that's either side or center mounted on the camera. This is actually a really great way to shoot low, like we talked about with Mancam, but while moving. So you can use your hands as double steady cams, and you can basically shoot up at your talent while moving along. This works obviously much better with as light a camera as possible, because you're going to have to support the whole weight as you move. It's also a lot better to have the camera weight backwards rather than forwards. So if you do add a heavy prime lens or a cine lens to your crash cam rig, you may also want to put a V-mount battery on the back so that you're not constantly fighting the forward tipping momentum of the camera. You see crash cams a lot in action movies, chase scenes, and stuntmen strapped to cars. Anytime you need to move a camera and you really don't want the extra bulk of a Steadicam or a gimbal, but maybe you also want the sort of movement, the shaky cam effect that you get by running with a handheld camera. You can also set this up in the classic Red style with a single top handle with a top screen, almost like a tea kettle sort of, or a kettlebell sort of organization. The problem with this is you can move a lot faster because you're holding it with only one hand. The problem is that the camera tends to shake underneath, and it's difficult to stabilize it in its sort of swing. When you have two hands on the camera, you can control its tilt a lot better. They are my 3 top ways to do handheld on a cinema camera. You can check the description for the links to some of the things that I've used in this video. I'd love to hear what you guys like to use for your handheld work. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.